This is Paul Schmid. Welcome to the Pursuit Zone. Dan Hobbs climbed 57 Colorado peaks in 25 days to raise money for Save the Children, a charity that helps poor and afflicted children in the U.S. and around the world. All the peaks were over 14,000 feet, and 17 of them required Class 3 to 5 technical climbing skills. That's 400 miles and 160,000 vertical feet of hiking and climbing, using many non-traditional routes and peak-to-peak traverses. You can learn more about his challenging adventure at rundanrun.org. Dan Hobbs, welcome to the Pursuit Zone.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Dan, let's talk a little about your background. First of all, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I was actually born in Colorado Springs, Colorado, but moved away when I was like 2. So I grew up in Eau Claire and moved to the Twin Cities on and off since 2007.
Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I've been there a few times. Not exactly known for the mountains.
No, mostly cornfields. Not much in the mountain category.
Did you have a lot of climbing experience before you got into this adventure?
I had some. I don't know how I definitely wasn't a professional climber by any means, but my parents actually live in Boulder, Colorado now. They moved out there a couple of years ago. So when I'd go out to visit, Dad and I we just started doing some basic hikes, and then we tried snow climbing a little bit and kind of progressed into some more difficult snow climbing, and so over the years it just kind of blossomed out. But I had done 3 14ers before I left to head out there, so not a lot. Definitely was a bit of an underdog in the adventure.
So Dan, why were you doing this?
Well, a couple reasons. The thought first came to me. I saw an article from John Prater, who did a record attempt last year. Just read through it. This was like last spring, and I was like, wow, that sounds interesting and really kind of a fun challenge, like something I would like to do someday in my life. And then I was looking to do a charity fundraiser as well. I've done mission work and a lot of nonprofit work in the past, and I kind of wanted to tie my growing love for climbing and athleticism with charity. And I don't know, really kind of came across one night. I was just kind of sitting there, and it just dawned on me. I was like, hey, that'd be a great idea. And that was about the extent of my reasoning to it at that point, and then I started working on it from there.
How much time before you started hiking in this charity event did you have that idea? How much time passed?
I had the idea in May, but...
of 2013?
Yeah, this year, and I have 2 kids, and I really didn't really figure out that I was going to be able to do it until, I think it was like July 5th. So I really had, the whole thing honestly was pretty bizarre how it all started out. It was awesome. I had trained hard before that, not necessarily for the mountains. I was just trying to get in running shape for racing and stuff, and kind of was motivated in the back of my head that, this may work out, but I really didn't know until July 5th. And at that point, I really went kind of all out, trying to get ready in 1 month, which was crazy. It really was a wild couple months there getting ready for this. But I had been biking and running pretty hard before that, but nothing specifically training.
Before we get into talking about some of the preparations, I want to go back and touch upon a point here. What was it that attracted you to getting involved in the charitable causes?
Well, that goes back a long way. Some of it's faith-based. I'm a Christian, and I believe part of my faith is charity and helping others who need help. And, and just kind of my personality, I really like helping people. It's been a big part of my life. So I've worked in Asia multiple times over the last 6 years, doing mission work and whatnot. And then from home, I've done quite a bit as well and volunteered at homeless shelters and things like that. And I really, I saw some potential that fundraising may be a pretty viable option. And if I'm going to go on an adventure, I didn't want it to be, it seemed kind of selfish to me when I was thinking about spending this much time and energy and doing something just for me. It seemed very kind of just about me, and so I did some reading and noticed that a lot of other people are doing pretty good jobs at fundraising through the same thing. So I put the two together and went at it.
On your Facebook page, it mentions that you had worked in a refugee camp. Tell me about that.
Sure. In 2011, I worked in Asia for a couple months, South Asia, with a group over there. And one of our projects was working with the Bhutanese refugees that are in East Nepal, outside Damak, Nepal. They've been there for 20 years when Bhutan basically ethnically cleansed their society, and they dumped them all off in Nepal. So there's these huge camps with about 200,000 people there, and we were working with them, providing aid. And it was more strategic stuff, providing a better lifestyle for them long term. And in the meantime, the U.S. has started taking a lot of those refugees, so we ended up working with a lot of the refugees coming back. So actually the next year, in 2012, I worked in Ohio with refugees that have now made it over to America. But the overall experience was pretty awesome and pretty unique.
I'm curious, how hard of a time do they have adjusting?
Well, it's pretty interesting. I mean, they're from Bhutan, but they're Nepali of descent, and their culture is quite a bit different than ours, but they're incredibly nice people. I mean, I don't know if I've ever known a nicer, more gracious people than people of Nepali descent, and they hold American classes for them over there, wherever. Some of them have gone to Europe, and they hold classes for them, trying to teach them some English and whatnot. But it's a big shock. I mean, they're literally living in bamboo and grass huts, and 20 years they've been living in a grass hut. So when they get over here, it's a bit of a shock. The people that I knew, they had completely decked out their apartments like the inside of their grass huts. And in Nepal, it was really kind of fun, and they were doing all right. Finding work and fitting in is a bit difficult for them, but they're really motivated because they're just live miserable lives, and they're not allowed to work inside the refugee camp, and so it's a big deal to them to get a job, and they really, really work hard once they get one.
Let's go back to your adventure. You've got a pretty short window to get prepared for your climbing adventure. What did you have to do during that time to get yourself outfitted?
Well, I had a fair amount of gear. I thought I had more than I thought I actually started out with as much as I needed, but I laid it all out, kind of went through, what I would need. And honestly, I really hadn't done anything like this before. I'd done, long one-day climbs. I've done winter climbing, which is pretty gear-intensive, but, thinking about doing this endlessly and doing it fast was the big deal. I really didn't have speed. I didn't have lightweight gear. So I did a lot of research online and whatnot, and my dad was in Boulder, so he's got access to just about every, some of the prime mountaineering stores in the world in Boulder, and so he was doing research for me there, and we put stuff together, and I spent more money than I wanted to, I guess, on gear, but came out with a pretty good set. And then getting myself physically prepared is really hard because, as you know, Minneapolis is actually worse than Wisconsin when it comes to finding hills. It's pretty flat around here. I think that's one of the reasons why they built a big city on the area. So training was pretty hard. I actually found that training was the best training I got was putting my two kids in a bike trailer, which the bike trailer and my two kids together weighed 90-some pounds, and then just going out biking as hard as I could, trying to hold 18, 19 miles an hour of that and finding what hills I could and powering up and down them was probably the best, climbing muscle I got out of it. I really was pretty inadequately trained when I showed up, unfortunately, but it was the best I could do. And then on the gear again, even when I showed up out there, I was short quite a bit, so I still needed two different types of backpacks and shoes. I didn't have any shoes for what I needed when I showed up in Boulder because I couldn't find any in Minneapolis. They don't really sell good trail runners and whatnot around here. At least I couldn't find any, and the ones that I needed. So I spent the 10 days I had in Boulder before I left. I was buying stuff and feverishly trying stuff out, which led to some complications because I didn't get to break my shoes in. So I had quite a few blisters in the first week, but worked through that. Still made it through.
Tell me the story of this truck camper.
The truck camper. Well, I also showed up in Boulder. again, felt a little bit on the underdog side of things. I showed up in Boulder with my Saturn car, and I knew that wasn't going to do me very good because probably half of these mountains are on four-wheel drive access roads. Four-wheel drive out there is really four-wheel drive. It's pretty serious rocks and rivers going through roads and stuff like that, cliffs and whatnot. So I was feverishly trying to buy a truck. I got really blessed with a truck, bought a Toyota Tacoma, perfect, the TRD package, the off-road package and all that, perfect for what I needed. Found one, and they're pretty hard to find. There's a lot of them out there, but everybody wants one, so they're hard to find. And then I also found a small pop-up camper to go on the back, and I found a four-wheel camper, which is specifically made for off-roading, and those are really rare. I probably grabbed the only one for sale in Colorado, and it showed up for sale right when I needed it, so that was pretty awesome. And it's just a small camper, could fit 2, maybe 3 people if you really squeezed, but it was nice. And we'll get into this later probably, but it rained most days that I was out, and having something better than a tent to just hop in, pop the top up, and stay dry, cook some food, especially some of these days where they didn't even get back to the truck till late at night. It was really nice, and that really saved the day. And the truck made it through some pretty tough situations. Some of the access roads are pretty bad, like way worse than anything you can find in Minnesota. And I accidentally took a wrong turn down a really serious four-wheel drive road that was actually one of the more scary parts of the entire adventure. Was that down that road I couldn't turn around once I got on it because it was narrow and on a cliff edge, and I was going over rock ledges and whatnot. It was pretty bad, but the truck survived, and it was a pretty interesting part of the adventure.
Do you still own the truck?
My dad, actually, who did half the mountains with me, liked it so much by the time we got done, he bought it from me when I got done. So that worked out well, because I was going to have to sell it probably when I got done, but he fell in love with it while we were using it, and he was like, gosh, I'm just going to keep this thing. So he bought it from me, and that all worked out. I really wanted to keep it, but I just don't have a lot of reason to keep one in Minnesota. So, and he still has it, so whenever I need it, I can just borrow it from him.
Dan, how do you decide on this adventure which peaks you're going to climb?
Well, I did the Colorado 14ers, so there are 58 14ers in Colorado that are recognized. Some people say there's 54, some people say there's 55, some people say there's 58. The difference being there's what they call the 300-foot prominence rule or individual prominence rule, so they don't consider a peak unless it's got the 300-foot prominence from the next peak over from it. So there's a couple of those out of the 58 that don't rise more than 300 feet from the next mountain, even though some of those mountains are pretty hard to do. So I decided to do them all. I think the official racing standard is 55, but I did them all either way. It wasn't a big add-on. It really wasn't a big deal between 58 or 55. And I did take one out. I took out, so I ended up doing 57. There's a mountain called Culebra, which is in southeast Colorado that's on private land, and a ranch owns it, and they charge a $100 fee to go up it, kind of like it's an amusement park sort of thing, and a lot of climbers are boycotting it because of this. And I myself and a lot of climbers believe that the 14ers should be, there are natural resources, they should be shared to the public, and I just don't agree with someone owning and charging a $100 access fee to one of the 14ers, so I boycotted that one and ended up with 57.
This prominence rule that you mentioned, it was either on your website or on your Facebook page, something about a Colorado rule. Is that the same thing?
No, those are two different rules. The prominence rule is just whether or not you recognize a peak or not. The Colorado rule is whether or not you officially climb a mountain or not. And the Colorado rule states that you have to ascend 3,000 feet minimum and descend 3,000 feet vertical minimum for a mountain, for it to actually count that you climbed a mountain. And a lot of the mountains, that's not a problem at all because you're ascending and descending way more than that. But some of them, the access roads, the mining roads that you can drive, way up to almost 13,000 feet on some of them. And that's really nice when you're tired and you've been climbing all day. And you could shortcut, but it doesn't count, so you actually have to start down the road lower than where you can drive to make sure you get a full 3,000 feet. And then if you have a set of mountains, like you're traversing between them, Colorado rule applies that just the highest mountain that you go to, you have to start 3,000 feet below that one. And then if you're going to do traverses, you don't have to go down 3,000 feet back up. You can just traverse between them as long as your overall elevation gain is 3,000 feet to the highest point.
Are any permits or passes or anything like that required?
Not if you don't do Culebra. Like I said, Culebra has the $100 access fee, and I just want to reiterate that I think it's ridiculous. But there are 4 of them that are easiest accessed by a train. You can hike 7 more miles to get to the lower trailhead, but they're easiest accessed by the Durango Silverton old steam engine train.
Yeah, tell me about that. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, so it is kind of a unique part of the whole thing. Adds a little kind of flair to the adventure. So you start in Durango or Silverton, Colorado, and it's the old mining train that they built to haul materials, people, and silver and all that from Silverton down to Durango, which is where the main rail line went through, east and west. And it's an old narrow gauge steam engine train, and it's a little expensive, but it's kind of fun. It's all the original cars and all that they restored. So you get on the train in Durango, and you chug up the mountains at 15 miles an hour, and it goes through some pretty crazy cliff overhangs and stuff over valleys and gorges and stuff like that. And it drops you off at what used to be, I guess, a town called Needleton, even though there's only like one building there now. It's really not a town. It just drops you off in the woods, and there's an old building there in the woods. But at Needleton, and then you have a 6-mile hike up to the base of the mountains. So it's a bit of an adventure in the way I routed it, which wasn't maybe ideal, but I had to backpack up there and spend the night and climb the mountains over the next day and get back on the train and ride back down.
Did you have any problems with altitude sickness?
I did. Like I said, I only had 10 days when I got out there before I started, and I had a fairly good plan to acclimate as best as I could in 10 days, but that didn't end up working out real well, mainly because it took a little more work to find the truck and all the gear and all that, so I spent more time doing that than I did climbing before I started. So my first and second day were pretty bad. Actually, the first 5 days, but the first and second day was pretty rough. I was pretty sick, and after that, I stopped getting sick. After day 5, I think it was pretty interesting. By the time I was done, I felt zero difference, even with the oxygen difference. I climbed just as fast at the top at 14,000 feet as I did at 9 or 10,000 feet when we got done. But to begin with, it was really hard. You know, the higher I got to 14,000, I got dizzy and sick, and you know, breathing was hard.
Did you have any issues keeping yourself motivated?
I did. I made it. So I started with Pikes Peak, and I worked my way down through the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, and then over to the southwest in the San Juans, which is where the train is. And I did all right through that. And the weather was on and off pretty bad. And then after about halfway, probably really around peak 40, it got really rough. I was going 12 plus hours a day some days. I mean, the longest day was like 22 hours, and the days kept getting longer as time went on, as the schedule got a little more strict and harder, and it just got hard. And when the weather got bad and I was climbing alone, I didn't see anybody for a couple of days on end, and I was sick and I couldn't eat anymore. I had force food down my mouth, and I was feeling pretty bad. I ended up getting stomach sick, and I was really wanting to quit at that point. It was pretty hard, and it really did help having the fundraiser going on, because I had a lot of people kind of looking up to me on this, and a lot of people gave towards it, and I just really felt the responsibility that I had to finish, and I'm glad I did, because it was worth it in the end. But there was a couple days there that were pretty bad. I got down to Buena Vista one night, after, I forget which mountains I did, but I was in the clouds all day, and it was storming, and by myself. I didn't see anybody up there, and I don't know, I just, I'm pretty strong mentally, and I just got down to town, and I just basically broke down in my truck and just wanted to cry, because I couldn't take it anymore. It was so hard, and I didn't have anybody to talk to, so I made a couple phone calls, drove myself back up, got some extra sleep, and kept going the next day, but it was pretty hard.
How was it having your father with you?
That really helped. I mean, I don't know how, even, I mean, it helped during the day when we were climbing, and it helped mentally, more just having somebody to talk to at night was huge. Mentally, I mean, really, honestly, everybody says it, and it is true. The physical part of this was hard, but mentally it was really quite a bit harder. And it was great having him on the climb. He did all the hardest ones with me, and it's nice having someone there in case you get hurt or whatever. It's a lot nicer, and I spent a lot of great time with my dad. I don't see him that much. He lives in Colorado, so we spent quite a few days together and made a lot of memories together and had a good time. And he did pretty amazing. He's a little slower than I am up, but still for his age, he's faster than 99.9% of people out there. And he kept up most of the time and did amazing. And he just beat cancer earlier this year, so that was even more amazing.
How many peaks did you guys do together?
I think he did, I don't remember exactly, I think he did 30 or 31 when we were done, so just a little over half. And I think it was 31 that he did. He did exactly half of the days with me. I think he just got a couple over half of the mountains. Yeah, it was pretty amazing. He didn't climb straight, so he would be with me for a couple of days, and he had to go back to work and then come back. But still, it was pretty amazing. I mean, it's a pretty incredible deal climbing, 2,400 feet an hour vertical and running up and down and doing that 12, 16 hours a day, day after day. I mean, it's a pretty hard deal, and he kept up, pretty strong and did all the hard technical ones with me as well. So it was pretty cool.
What was the most challenging peak?
I would say Little Bear which is in the Blanca group in southeast Colorado, the Sangre de Cristos. I mean, it's kind of known to be the most dangerous out of all of them because there's a lot of falling rock and there's really nothing you can do about it. And they can tear your head off or rip your arm off or whatever, and all you hear is whoosh, and there's nothing you can do. And it's pretty solid class 4 or 5 the whole way, but we did it in a storm. That made it a lot harder. It was storming the whole time, so it's already in like the top 1 or probably 1 to 3 hardest ones, depending on who you ask. And then it was storming out, and the rock got really slick, and you couldn't see anything, and there were rocks coming down, and you never saw them. You just heard a whoosh, and this boulder would go whip it down next to you, and that was pretty scary. I don't really want to. I enjoyed it, but I really don't want to do it in the storm again. that was pretty bad. We actually got lost. We were 50 feet below the summit, and we couldn't figure out where the summit was because you could only see about 10, 15 feet in front of you in the cloud. So that one was pretty hard. I would say it was probably the hardest overall, most dangerous for sure. Some of the other ones were maybe equally as challenging, but definitely not as dangerous.
Now, you were there in 2013 when Colorado had this big issue with flooding, massive rainstorms. Tell me about that, and also, did you guys run into any issues with lightning?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how to even start with the weather. So it stormed 19 out of the 25 days. It was, I guess, statistically, it was the worst weather pattern in recorded history. And my dad actually works for NOAA, the weather agency in Boulder. And so he said the researchers there were saying it was probably, from what they know, the worst weather pattern in 500 years in Colorado. I mean, they don't have record history, but what they know from tree rings and all that, the most stormy year in 500 years. So it was really bad. I'm not going to lie, it was probably as bad as it could have possibly been. It was. I mean, lightning was prevalent I don't know, over half of the days. There was 2 mountains we were on that lightning, like we were on the mountain and lightning was striking, and it was extremely scary. It's, we hear lightning down here and you get thunder and whatnot. It's kind of scary, but when you're on a mountain, it's basically like standing on top of a, lightning rod on top of a building, and it's about what you are on top of a mountain. And then the thunder isn't like what we hear thunder, so you're like right inside the cloud. It's like an artillery barrage going off right next to you. It's pretty crazy. So that was one of my 2 scariest points, was one of those mountains in the lightning. And then the other one we were pretty trapped in the lightning was doing the Wilson to El Diente Traverse, which is one of the 4 great technical traverses in the 14ers. And so it's technical, it's class 4 plus, and you're up on this ridge and you're exposed and you really can't get off of it. And the storm came whipping in and lightning, and it was raining, and we're on rock. So that was pretty scary too. And you can say this is dumb or not. I think we should talk later about safety concerns when you're speed climbing. But when you're speed climbing, you kind of have to throw some of the safety concerns out the window. And normally, if it's going to storm, you just stay home. But if you're trying to set a record or go as fast as you can and get 6 mountains done in a day, you kind of have to throw conventional climber's wisdom out the window to whatever degree you want to do that. So we had one day when Dad was with me and we were doing 6 mountains, and we knew storms were coming in, and I didn't want to lose a day, and so I made the decision to go up anyways. And that day, like, my hat was zapping my head, and my backpack was shocking my body, and the rocks were clacking from the static electricity, like loudly flapping and clacking from electricity going in between the rocks. And that was probably one of the most scary times. And again, I made the decision. It was probably, generally looking back, a pretty dumb decision, but we made it out alive. It just wasn't real sure we were going to make it out alive when we were up there. So, not something I want to relive, honestly. I would probably not do that decision again.
For somebody who's not a climber, that doesn't understand what these terms mean, like class 3 or 4 or whatever, can you explain a little about that?
Sure. Yeah, I'll do my best. So there's class 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 climbing. And class 1 is like a really easy trail. Class 2 requires a trail, but it has some rock scrambling, a little bit of, hand over foot stuff. Class 3 is still rock scrambling. It's rarely fully vertical. If it is, it's just for a really short amount of time, but it's usually extremely steep. A lot of times class 3 will have a lot of exposure, meaning that if you fall, you might fall off a cliff sort of thing, but the actual handholds and footholds are pretty easy to hang on to. Most class 3 falls would lead to serious injury, sometimes death, maybe a 50-50 ratio there, and a couple tricky moves. Most people don't use ropes. Some people do for safety in class 3. Class 4 is kind of simple. It's rock climbing, but it's usually simple rock climbing, and vertical pitches are common, but they're not huge. But they're usually class 4 has a lot of exposure. So most of the time, if you fall in class 4, you're probably going to die if you fall. If you're lucky, you might be seriously injured. And then once you hit class 5, it's what we would consider like serious rock climbing. Ropes should be used at all times if you can. Unprotected fall is almost always fatal. The technical maneuvers, hard handholds, and different grips and chimneys and things like that are pretty common on a class 5.
Dan, out of the 25 days, what was the most memorable one for you?
Day number 2, we did the Crestone group, which is 5 mountains. Probably the most memorable and longest day. The 2, Crestone, the Needle, and the Peak, are probably in the top 5 hardest mountains out there, or 14ers out in Colorado, and they're 2 out of 5 you do that day. It's a really long day because the road is closed down low now, so you have to hike way up this road and then do 5 peaks. And the traverse, you actually end up doing 7 peaks. There's a mountain that's 13,980 feet in the middle that you have to ascend and descend going one direction to get to 2 mountains, and then once you do those 2 mountains, you turn around and you have to ascend and descend this just, 20 foot shorter than a 14er mountain. In the middle twice, which is pretty crazy. So you really do 7 peaks in this one day, and that one in the middle is pretty technical on the one side. So you do four technical mountains, 7 peaks. What made it really memorable, a couple things. It was our second day. We were extremely altitude sick that day and pretty out of it, and muscles weren't really in tune yet. Plus, we ended up getting to the top of the last one right at dark, and the traverse between the Crestone Peak and the Crestone Needle is Class 5, and the way up the peak, which is the first of the two that you do, is solid Class 4 for like 1,800 feet. You go up this gully, and then you get to the top of one, and then you do a Class 5 traverse, and we got off at Class 5 right as it got dark, and so we were like racing up this really exposed Class 5 pitch, got to the top at dark, and then we realized that I forgot the map on how to get off of this mountain, and it was dark out. That was not a good realization at the time, and we were like, well, it can't be too hard, even though it's one of the hardest ones out there. And if you go up the Crestone Needle the right way, there's one way up the mountain that's actually correct, and you can stick to a kind of difficult Class 3 pattern. If you get anywhere off that exact route, it's Class 4 to upper Class 5, depending on where you are. And of course, we got lost in the first 20 minutes trying to find our way down this cliff face, and ended up being lost till on the steep faces on 4-5 stuff. We got lost till midnight, and the wind was picking up above 30 miles an hour, and the temperature was dropping down into the 30s. And it was quite obvious that we had to find our way off, or we probably weren't going to make it back by morning. So we had a couple talks about our chances of survival, and which ended up probably generally assuming we weren't going to survive given the temperatures at that time. So that was, looking back at it, we kind of laughed, but at the time it was pretty terrifying for 4.5 hours being lost up on these cliff faces. We made it back up to the top once, and that actually is where we ended up finding our way down the correct way. We went down, back up, and down, and back up, and we went all the way back up to the top and slowly worked our way down, which took another 2 hours in the dark. We ended up not getting back to the truck till 2:30 a.m. But we lived, and we learned a lot, and just being with Dad and kind of sitting there together and talking about whether or not we're going to die was kind of a bonding experience. So.
I discovered this story about you through the Star Tribune article, and a big focus of that article was about fundraising and the use of social media for people doing these adventures like yourself and raising money for charity. I was curious, after this, after all this has been said and done, what did you learn about, social media to try and be part of your fundraising efforts?
Indeed. Well, I learned quite a bit, and I intend to keep going down this path. Run the group I started for this organization is Run Dan Run. I intend Run Dan Run to keep going next year and continue on. So I did learn quite a bit. Some of the big outtakes I got is fundraising takes time. It takes connections, and unless you're blessed with knowing a lot of generous, rich people who want to give you money, getting those connections takes a lot of hard work, and just doesn't fall in your lap. You just can't say, hey, I'm going to go do something cool, give money to charity, because, that's not really going to work, I found out. You really got to, essentially be a salesperson for your cause and get out there and kind of pound the pavement, find people, corporate sponsors or matchers, and, drum up support for your cause and really help people understand and, do those sort of things. And I think once you do that, you can have a pretty strong impact, but you also have to do something, actually interesting as well. I mean, I did something about as extreme as I could possibly do. There isn't a whole lot in North America you can do, more than what I did this summer, and still it was kind of hard for people, in general to get behind it. I had great support. I'm not complaining for what I got. I just know that there's a lot more potential out there if you really put the work into it and take it seriously.
Dan, if you were to do this again, what's one thing that you would do different?
I would definitely train a lot more. I'm not going to lie, I did not train nearly enough, and it had a serious impact on what I did. I would train on mountains a lot different than I did. Like, I didn't have any mountain time. I had Minneapolis biking time and running time, but that was not what I needed. It certainly helped, but it definitely need to train on the mountain next time. And I would plan a lot better. I really didn't know at all what I was getting into. I don't think the brevity of this adventure really had dawned on me at the time. So it was definitely a bigger deal than I thought it was until I got into it. And I would route better. I think of now that I've done it, and I am considering doing this a second time to set the record.
What is the record?
Well, there's more than one record. So I did this unsupported, meaning I took care of myself. I drove my own vehicle everywhere all the time, no exception. I did all my own shopping. I did all my own. I had to cook my own food. So even when Dad was with me, I had to, make my own food and whatever. And honestly, that was really half of the battle was the driving and whatnot. Because some days I'd get done at dark, and then I'd have to drive for 4 hours, and I wouldn't get any sleep. It'd be pretty rough. So there's the unsupported record, which is what I was working at. And then there's the supported record, which is quite a bit faster. And the unsupported record is kind of up in the air. It's interesting. So somewhat unofficially or officially, depending on how you look at it, I did set it with my adventure. But there's a guy and a respectable, good fellow who claims he set it in 1995 faster than I did it. And I've talked to the guy. It sort of seems legit. I don't know as if he followed the rules or not, the more strict rules for being self-supported, but I'm not going to pick that fight with him. So I feel more motivated instead of picking a fight and trying to claim a record. I feel like I want to just beat what he did, whether he was fully self-supported or not, I don't know, but I'd like to do it faster. And that record is 16 days, number of hours. And I think right now if I went back and did it, just learning what I did, on how to route and reorganize how I did everything. I could probably do it in 18 days. I think with better training, I could shave another 2 days off.
Wow.
Get it down below that. So that would be crazy. But the one benefit I see of that is that it's over faster. The drawing out over time thing was pretty hard. I mean, when the weather turned really bad towards the end, roads were flooded out. We lost officially 1 day, but kind of 2 days there at the end. It was pretty hard, just the amount of time living in a truck, not being able to, have normal amenities or regular food was pretty rough. So getting it over in 16 days in some ways sounds almost easier mentally and probably harder physically.
Dan, what's your advice for someone that might follow after you?
Sure. Well, I do have some good thoughts out of that, and I really hope somebody does follow me. In doing this, one of the reasons I kind of was trying for the record was I really wanted to start a movement for the self-supported attempt on the 14ers, because I think it's definitely got some real personal challenges to it, and I really hope more people get into this at this time. But just a couple tidbits. I mean, it does take a little bit of crazy to do this. You can't be too rational, and you can't be too reserved. So if you're going to do it, just accept that everything is going to not go how you want it to, but that's the fun part. So I guess if I could sum it up, be crazy, but be calculated. Do some serious planning, and don't think about it too much after you get started. Do your thinking before you get started. After that, just enjoy it for what it is. Don't concentrate on the pain. Just enjoy the beauty of it, enjoy the challenge, and go for it. I mean, someone told me when right after I started that I met on the trail and I told them what I was doing, they said, people go crazy doing what you're doing. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And they're like, well, you just be prepared. And but he was kind of right. By Mountain 40, I felt like I was kind of losing it. But so a big piece of advice I have is make sure if you're doing it self-supported, you still have somebody to talk to at night. And again, just enjoy it for what it is and have fun doing it.
Dan, did you learn anything new about yourself during this adventure?
I did. I learned a lot. I mean, quite a bit. I mean, I renewed my faith, honestly. God and I were kind of on different terms before, and just that was a big part of this for me, was just getting in tune with God again, and sorted out some difficult family issues, got a better perspective, my relationship with my kids, actually kind of decided my future career path while I was up there. Also got over some huge roadblocks in my mind and heart. I've had some difficult family situations the last couple of years, and this really kind of helped me get over some humps in life through that. So,
Dan, what's next for you?
Well, I'm not sure. This was kind of a big thing. So I've been thinking about that. How do I top this? I mean, I really honestly am considering maybe 2 years out, going back and trying to do it 16 days. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. It depends on where my, body is at that point. Next year, I think I'm going to focus on running more. So I'm going to try to hammer down a less than 17-minute 5K, less than 34-minute 10K, and try to do a 120 or less half marathon next year. I've also thought about two other big things that I thought about. One I've thought about for a while is kayaking, sea kayaking from Santiago, Chile through Tierra del Fuego to southern tip of Tierra del Fuego in Argentina there, which is like 980 miles or something like that. There's that, and then, I don't know, it's opened up the thought of maybe doing the 7 summits before I, over the course of my lifetime, so we'll see. That's a new thought. And kind of randomly, I'd also like to be a driver and heavy gator in the Dakar Rally. That's kind of a random ambition of mine. I don't know how to make that one happen, but I've always wanted to do that, so we'll see. One of those things is going to come next, I'm not sure.
Dan, how can people get a hold of you if they want to learn more about the adventure or perhaps donate to Save the Children?
You can go to my website, which is rundanrun.org. You can kind of check out the adventure there and donate through that site. Goes to Save the Children. And then you can also go to facebook.com/DanIsRunning, or just search on Facebook, Dan is Running. And that's a little more updated than the website. I've been doing races since I got home, so you can follow Run Dan Run, since the adventure on Facebook. And you can also email me at danrunrun@gmail.com.
Okay, Dan Hobbs, thanks for coming on the show. Congratulations on your accomplishment and good luck on your future endeavors.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Recorded November 5, 2013. For more great podcasts, visit thepursuitzone.com.